My wife chose to open our marriage by letting me find her with her lover in our living room, but their little show ended with him bleeding in our front yard. Be me, 29 years old, living in Sacramento, working as a senior software developer at a big tech company, making really good money, living the dream. Married to Jennifer for 7 years. Everything seems perfect on the surface. Working late most nights to give her everything she wants. One random Tuesday in October, decide to come home early. Hands full of groceries from Trader Joe's. Wasn't supposed to be home yet. Told Jennifer I'd grab dinner after work. Store was empty, so made it back early. Early enough to catch everything falling apart. Step inside our house. Notice soft jazz music playing. We never play jazz. Hear laughter floating through the air. Not just Jennifer's laugh. Deep male chuckle joins hers. Feel my pulse quickening. Grip on grocery bags tightening. Step into the living room. Freeze in place. Can't believe what I'm seeing. Jennifer, my wife of 7 years, draped across some stranger's lap. Her hand lazily tracing circles on his chest. She's smiling and laughing, like nothing else matters in the world. Her shirt hanging off one shoulder, legs tucked under her like she owns the moment. The guy doesn't even look concerned, built like a football player, sitting on my couch, in my house, grinning like he won the lottery. They don't notice me at first, just stand there frozen, brain screaming to do something. Can't move, like my mind is short-circuiting, trying to process the impossible. Jennifer, I finally say. My voice breaks through the silence like thunder. Her head snaps toward me, eyes widen in shock for a split second. She freezes like a deer in headlights, then her face changes. Not guilt, not fear, just pure annoyance. Like I've interrupted her favorite TV show. Robert, she says calmly, like I just walked in on her folding laundry. You're back early. Stare at the whole scene in disbelief. At her, at this stranger underneath her, at the 2 wine glasses on the coffee table, at the vanilla-scented candles burning on our shelf. Feel my stomach churning, bile rising in my throat. What the hell is going on here? She stands up slowly, smooths her hair like she's on some kind of stage, trying to play the part of someone in control. Robert, she starts, her voice dripping with false patience. Don't jump to conclusions. Conclusions? I repeat, my voice rising with each word. You're sitting on another man's lap in our living room, and you don't want me to jump to conclusions? The guy, who she later calls Anthony, leans back completely unfazed. Smirk playing on his lips. Doesn't look guilty. Doesn't look sorry. Looks amused. Like I'm some punchline to a joke he's in on. Relax, man, Anthony says, his tone casual and condescending. She told me you'd be cool with this. Turn to Jennifer, my jaw clenching so hard it hurts. What is he talking about? She sighs, rolls her eyes like I'm being unreasonable. Look, I was going to tell you, she says, crosses her arms defensively. I've opened our marriage. You've what? My voice comes out louder than intended. Don't care anymore. Heart pounding in my chest. Fists trembling at my sides. I thought it would be good for us, she continues. Like this is just another one of her impulsive decorating ideas. You're always busy with work? Always stressed. I thought, bringing someone else in might spice things up. Stare at her in complete shock. Mind racing, trying to process the words coming out of her mouth. She's not apologizing. She's not even ashamed. Standing there in front of me, justifying bringing another man into our home, onto our couch, into our lives. Without ever asking me, Anthony stands up then, towering over me, his smirk growing wider. Look, bro, he says, like we're friends or something. If this is a problem, I can leave. But Jennifer said you'd be into it. Something inside me snaps. You think you can just walk in here like you belong here? My voice low and steady, the calm before the storm. Take a step toward him. For the first time, his smirk falters. You think you can put your hands on my wife and not deal with the consequences? Stop, Robert, Jennifer says. Steps between us. You're being ridiculous. But I don't stop. My fist connects with Anthony's jaw. Before I even realize what I'm doing, sound of impact echoes through the room. He stumbles back, crashes into our bookshelf. Jennifer screams, her hands flying to her face. Anthony recovers quickly, shakes his head like a boxer in the ring. Oh, so that's how it's going to be, he says, wipes blood from his lip. Fine, he lunges at me. Suddenly, we're both on the floor, fists flying everywhere. Coffee table splinters under the weight of our struggle. Jennifer's screams turn into angry shouts, telling us both to stop. But I don't care, not stopping until I make him regret. Ever stepping foot in my house, living room turns to chaos. Glass from the coffee table shatters across the floor. Smell of candles still lingers in the air. Anthony stands hunched near the wall, his breathing ragged. Red welt forming on his jaw. Don't stop to catch my breath. Not thinking anymore, just reacting. Get out of my house, I growl. Point toward the door. My voice low, cold, dangerous. Kind of voice that came from a place didn't know I had in me. Robert, stop! Jennifer's voice cuts through, shrill and panicked. But I ignore her. My eyes locked on Anthony, who isn't smirking anymore. You heard me, I repeat. Step toward him. Get out. Fine, Anthony mutters, brushes past me, like I'm not worth his time. But as he reaches the door, he stops, turns back with a sly grin. You might want to work on your marriage, man. Seems like you've got bigger problems than me. Door slams behind him, echo cutting through the room like a gunshot. For a moment, there's silence. Just me and Jennifer, standing on opposite sides of the wreckage. You're unbelievable, she hisses, breaking the silence. Her voice isn't scared, not apologetic either. It's angry. Do you have any idea how embarrassing that was? Turn to her slowly, my chest still heaving from the fight. Embarrassing? I repeat, my voice low and sharp. That's what you're worried about? That I embarrassed you? She rolls her eyes, crosses her arms like a petulant teenager. You completely overreacted, Robert. I was trying to explain. Explain? I snap. Cut her off mid-sentence. What exactly were you going to explain, Jennifer? That you invited another man into our house? Onto our couch? While I was out working to pay for all this? Her jaw tightens. For a moment, she says nothing. Then, to my disbelief, she laughs. A short, bitter laugh. Oh, don't act like some kind of saint, she says, voice dripping with sarcasm. You think you're perfect? You think this is all my fault? Stare at her, mind racing to process what I'm hearing. You're seriously blaming me? I say, voice shaking with anger. After everything you've done, you're blaming me? I've been telling you for months, she shoots back. Steps closer, her voice rising. I told you I was unhappy. I told you I needed more. But did you listen? No. You just kept working, kept ignoring me, acting like everything was fine. So this is my fault? I say bitterly, shaking my head. You're saying you had no choice. But to do this? I'm saying you pushed me to this, she yells, face red with anger. I tried, Robert. I tried to talk to you, to fix things, but you didn't care. So yeah, I found someone who did, someone who made me feel alive. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. Want to yell, want to scream, want to demand answers, but can only stand there stunned. The woman I thought I knew, the woman I'd built my life with, looking at me like I'm the villain in her story. You could have just left, I say finally, my voice quiet but steady. If you were so unhappy, you could have left, but instead you did this. You lied. You betrayed me. Her expression flickers for a moment. Think I see a hint of regret. Hope I see it. But then she straightens up, face hard and defiant. Maybe I didn't leave because I thought you'd change, she says, her voice sharp as glass. Maybe I stayed because I hoped you'd finally notice me. Let out a laugh, bitter and humorless. Notice you? I repeat. You're all I've ever noticed, Jennifer. I've worked myself to the bone to give you everything you wanted, but clearly it was never enough. Don't turn this around on me, she snaps. You're not some perfect husband, Robert. You're just as much to blame as I am. Stare at her. The woman I thought I'd spend the rest of my life with. Finally realized something I hadn't wanted to admit until now. This wasn't just a mistake. It wasn't just a bad decision. This was who she was. Selfish, cruel. Someone who could look me in the eye after everything she'd done and still believe she was the victim. Take a deep breath. Let the anger drain out of me. It wasn't worth it anymore. She wasn't worth it. You're right about one thing, I say finally, my voice calm and cold. This marriage is over. Her eyes widen slightly, but she quickly masks it with a smirk. Fine, she says, crosses her arms again. If that's what you want, don't answer. Just turn and walk away. Step over the broken glass, over the shattered remains of what used to be my life. The drive away from the house is a blur. Don't even remember grabbing my car keys. Somehow end up in the driver's seat, gripping the steering wheel so tight, my knuckles turn white. Street lights blur together, chest heaving. Try to steady my breathing. Her words keep ringing in my head. I needed more. I told you I was unhappy. Maybe I stayed because I hoped you'd change. Every excuse Jennifer threw at me. Replays like a broken record, each one cutting deeper than the last. But it's not just her words, it's her face. That smug smirk, that complete lack of remorse, the way she looked at me, like I was the one at fault. Pull into an empty parking lot, kill the engine, slump back in my seat. The silence is deafening. Stare at the dashboard. Try to make sense of the last hour. The woman I had loved for 7 years, the one I thought I'd grow old with, had thrown it all away, like it was nothing, and she didn't even care. For years, I'd blamed myself. For the distance between us, I worked late nights. Because I thought I was doing it for us. Skipped vacations. Because we agreed to save for the future. Every choice I made was for her, for the life we were supposed to be building together. But now I see the truth. It was never enough for Jennifer. It never would have been. Sharp knock on my window jolts me out of my thoughts. Turn to see my best friend Peter, peering at me with concern. Hadn't even realized I'd parked in front of the bar he manages. Roll down the window. "What are you doing here?" I ask, my voice hoarse from the night's events. He raises an eyebrow. "That's my question." "You look like hell, man. What's going on?" Hesitate for a moment, then open the car door. Step out into the night air. "You got a minute?" Peter nods, leads me inside the bar. Place is mostly empty. Just a few regulars, nursing their beers at the counter. He gestures toward a booth in the corner, slides in across from me. "All right," he says, leans forward. "Talk?" Hesitate again, unsure where to start. But once the words come, they don't stop. Tell him everything. Walking in on Jennifer and Anthony. The fight. All her excuses. The way she blamed me for everything. By the time I'm done, my throat feels raw. Peter's staring at me, like he can't believe what he just heard. "She said she opened the marriage?" he asks, voice filled with disbelief. "Without telling you?" I nod, run a hand through my hair. "Apparently she thought it would spice things up." Peter lets out a low whistle, shakes his head. "Man, that's next level crazy. And she's blaming you for it?" "Yep," I say bitterly. "According to her, I didn't notice her enough, so this is my fault." Peter leans back, crosses his arms. "Let me guess. She didn't apologize once." "Did she?" Let out a bitter laugh. "Not even close. She actually doubled down. Said I was the problem." "Unreal," Peter mutters, shakes his head again. "You know what you need to do, right?" Look at Peter, my stomach churning. Know what he's going to say, but hearing it out loud would make it feel too final. "You need to walk away," he says firmly. "File for divorce? Cut her off. She doesn't deserve a second of your time. After this, stay silent. Stare at the scratched surface of the table. Deep down, I know he's right. But part of me, the part that still remembers the good times, the love we'd once shared, is holding on. Letting go feels like admitting defeat, like giving up on the life we'd built together. "You're not giving up," Peter says, like he's reading my mind. "You're choosing yourself, man. There's a difference." Swallow hard, nod slowly. He's right. Staying with Jennifer wouldn't fix anything. She made her choice. Now it's time for me to make mine. Stay at the bar for another hour, nursing a whiskey, while Peter closes up. The alcohol dulls the edge of my emotions, but doesn't erase them. When I finally leave, the night air is cold, biting against my skin. As I walk to my car, don't want to go back to the house. The thought of seeing Jennifer again, of stepping back into that space where everything fell apart, makes my stomach churn. So I drive to a motel on the outskirts of town, check into a room that smells faintly of bleach and stale cigarettes. Lie on the stiff bed, staring at the cracks in the ceiling. Feel the full weight of the night settle on me. The anger has burned out completely, leaving behind a hollow ache in my chest. I've lost something tonight, something I can never get back. And as much as I want to hate Jennifer, part of me still loves her. Or maybe I just love who I thought she was. The only thing I know for sure is that my life will never be the same. The next morning comes slowly, dragging sunlight through the thin motel curtains, like it's mocking me. Haven't slept at all. Every time I close my eyes, I see her face, Jennifer looking at me, with that infuriating mix of defiance and indifference. Every word she said last night plays on repeat, a cruel symphony I can't shut off. Stare at the ceiling. The motel clock ticking loudly on the wall. My phone sits on the bedside table, buzzing occasionally, with texts and missed calls. Jennifer tried calling once, late at night, but I didn't answer. I couldn't. What would I even say after that? It's mostly Peter checking in on me, asking if I'm okay. At least someone gives a damn. By noon, I can't take the silence anymore. Grab my phone. Call my lawyer. "Robert," Melanie answers briskly, her tone always professional. "What can I do for you?" Pause for a moment, the words catching in my throat. This is it. The moment I take the first step toward cutting her out of my life for good. "I need to talk about divorce," I say finally, my voice quieter than expected. Melanie doesn't hesitate. "All right," she says. "Why don't you come by the office later today? We'll go over everything." After hanging up, sit on the edge of the bed, staring at the carpet. The decision feels heavy, final. But deep down, I know it's the right one. Jennifer has made her choice. Now I'm making mine. Drive to the house later that afternoon. Not because I want to see her, but because I need to grab some clothes and a few essentials. The thought of walking back into that space, of seeing her again, makes my chest tighten. But I can't avoid it forever. When I pull into the driveway, her car is parked out front. My hands grip the steering wheel tightly. As I sit there, staring at the front door. For a moment, consider driving away, pretending the house doesn't exist, but then take a deep breath. Get out of the car. Walk inside. The living room is eerily quiet, the broken coffee table gone, the floor swept clean. Jennifer has clearly spent the morning tidying up, as if she could erase the chaos of the night before, with a broom and a trash bag. But she can't erase the memory. Not for me. She's sitting on the couch, scrolling through her phone. When I walk in, her head snaps up. For a split second, see relief flash across her face. But then it's gone, replaced by that same hard, defensive expression. You're back, she says simply, setting her phone down. Just here to grab some things, I say coldly, not meeting her eyes. As I head toward the bedroom, Robert, wait! Her voice follows me, sharp and demanding. We need to talk. Stop in the hallway, my back to her. About what, Jennifer? I ask, my voice flat and emotionless. About how you betrayed me? About how you brought another man into our house and blamed me for it? She sighs, can hear the irritation in her voice. I'm trying to fix this, Robert. But I can't do that if you won't even talk to me. Turn slowly, finally looking at her. Fix this, I repeat, my voice rising. You can't fix what you've done, Jennifer. You can't take it back. I made a mistake, she says. Standing now, arms crossed defensively. But don't act like you're some innocent victim. You ignored me for years, Robert. You made me feel invisible. Don't, I say, pointing a finger at her. Don't you dare try to justify this. If you were unhappy, you could have talked to me. You could have left, but instead you lied. You cheated. She rolls her eyes, her mouth twisting into a sneer. Oh, please. Like you've been perfect. You've been married to your job for years. Half the time I didn't even know if you'd come home. Stare at her, the anger boiling inside me. But beneath the anger, there's something else, something colder. Realize then that I don't love her anymore. Not the person she's become. Or maybe this was who she'd always been, and I just refuse to see it. I'm done, I say finally, my voice quiet but firm. I've already called a lawyer. This marriage is over. Her face falls for a moment, the bravado cracking. Just enough for me to see the panic underneath. But then she straightens up, her expression hardening again. Fine, she says, her voice sharp. If that's what you want, it's what I need, I say simply. Turn away. Walk into the bedroom. Pack quickly, grabbing enough clothes to last me a few weeks. Jennifer doesn't follow me, doesn't try to stop me. By the time I walk out the front door, it feels like a weight has lifted off my chest. The house, the life we'd built together, it isn't mine anymore. It never really had been. Toss my bag into the car. Drive away without looking back. Driving away from that house feels like cutting a tether that had held me down for years. Tell myself I wouldn't look back, that I'm done with Jennifer and everything we once shared. But the reality of what I've just done hits me like a sledgehammer. The moment I pull into Peter's driveway, he's outside, sitting on the porch with a beer in hand. When he sees me, he waves me over. No words needed. Step out of the car, grab my bag from the trunk, join him on the porch. Well, he asks, handing me a beer. It's done, I say, sitting heavily in the chair beside him. I told her it's over. Called the lawyer. Packed a bag. Peter lets out a low whistle. Damn, man. I mean, good for you. But that's gotta sting. I nod, staring at the beer in my hand. It does. But it's like you said. There's no saving this. She made her choice. And now I've made mine. Peter takes a sip. Studies me carefully. She say anything? Try to fight it? Let out a bitter laugh. If you can believe it, she tried to turn it around on me. Said I was never there for her. That I made her feel invisible. Like that justifies what she did. Classic narcissist move, Peter mutters. Blame you to avoid taking any responsibility. That's Jennifer for you, I say, shaking my head. Even at the end, she couldn't admit she was wrong. We sit in silence for a while. The cool evening air settling around us. The anger I'd felt earlier has dulled, replaced by a deep aching sadness. I don't regret my decision, but that doesn't make it any easier. 7 years of marriage, gone in a single night. You're staying here, right? Peter asks, breaking the silence. For now, I say. Until I figure out my next move. You can stay as long as you need, he says firmly. You don't need to rush into anything. Just focus on getting your head straight. Thanks, man, I say genuinely. Grateful Peter has always been there for me, even when I didn't deserve it. If there's one silver lining in all of this, it's knowing I still have people I can count on. The next few days pass in a blur. Stay busy, throwing myself into work, avoiding any downtime, where my mind might wander back to Jennifer. Peter keeps me company when he can, making sure I don't spiral too far into my own thoughts. But no matter how much I try to distract myself, The pain lingers. Then on the fourth day, get a call from my lawyer. Robert, Melanie says, her tone calm but serious. We've started drafting the paperwork. But there's something you need to know. What is it? I ask, bracing myself. Jennifer's already reached out to a lawyer of her own, she says. And it sounds like she's planning to fight. Fight? I repeat, frowning deeply. Fight for what? We don't have kids. The house is in my name. What could she possibly want? Melanie hesitates for a moment. She's asking for spousal support. Nearly dropped the phone. You're kidding. I wish I was, Melanie says. But she's claiming that she gave up her career to support you. And now she's entitled to compensation. Let out a bitter laugh, run a hand through my hair. Support me? She hasn't worked in 5 years. And even before that, she barely kept a job for more than a few months. How is this even a thing? She'll have to prove her claims, Melanie says, her tone reassuring. And from what you've told me, that won't be easy. But it's clear she's trying to make this as difficult as possible. Sigh heavily, lean back in my chair. Of course she was. Jennifer wasn't just going to let me walk away. Without a fight, she had to make it messy. Had to drag me down with her. What do we do? I ask. Leave it to me, Melanie says. I've handled cases like this before. Just make sure you're ready for a fight. She's not going to go quietly. That evening, sit on Peter's porch again, staring out at the street as I tell him about Jennifer's latest move. He shakes his head, lets out a low whistle. She's got some nerve, he says. Spousal support after what she did, that's rich. She knows how to twist things, I say bitterly. She's always been good at playing the victim. Peter leans back in his chair, his expression thoughtful. You need to be ready, man. She's not just coming for your money. She's coming for your peace. Don't let her win. I won't, I say firmly. I've already lost too much because of her. I'm not giving her anything else. As the days turn into weeks, the legal battle begins. Jennifer's lawyer sends demands, and Melanie shuts them down just as quickly. It's exhausting. Every email and phone call, a reminder of how far we'd fallen. But as hard as it is, I know I can't back down. This isn't just about money. It's about reclaiming my life. And slowly I start to see a path forward. A life without Jennifer. A life where I'm not walking on eggshells, constantly trying to please someone who would never be satisfied. It isn't easy, and it isn't quick, but it's possible. For the first time in years, I feel like I'm in control. By the third week, the gloves are fully off. Jennifer and her lawyer aren't just aiming for spousal support anymore. They're coming for blood. Every email that comes through Melanie's office is laced with thinly veiled accusations. I was emotionally neglectful. I'd created a hostile environment. And worst of all, they implied I'd been unfaithful. The irony isn't lost on me. Jennifer, the woman who brazenly brought another man into our home, is now painting herself as the victim. You're holding up okay? Melanie asks. During one of our late afternoon calls. Define okay, I reply. Pacing the small guest room at Peter's house. I feel like I'm in the middle of a war. I didn't sign up for, she gives a soft chuckle, though her voice carries an edge of seriousness. That's what divorce can feel like, when one side refuses to accept responsibility. But we've got the upper hand here, Robert. I've gone through her financials, and there's nothing substantial backing her claims. All we need is to stay consistent and calm. Don't engage directly with her. Let me handle everything. That last part was easier said than done. Jennifer had started texting me, not with apologies, but with long rambling diatribes about how I was ruining her life and leaving her with nothing. I ignored them all, each message only reinforcing why I'd made the right decision. A few nights later, Peter and I are having dinner. When my phone buzzes again, ignore it at first. But something tells me to look. It isn't Jennifer this time. It's a text from an unknown number. The message reads, "Thought you might want to know the truth about Jennifer. Let me know if you're interested." Stare at the screen, my stomach churning. Could be spam, but something about the timing and the cryptic nature of the message makes me curious. Show Peter the text. Could be someone trying to mess with you, he says, frowning. But then again, it could be legit. Debate for a moment, then reply cautiously. Who is this? The response comes almost immediately. Someone who's been where you are. Jennifer's not who you think she is. Call me if you want proof. The message includes a phone number. Peter raises an eyebrow. What are you going to do? I hesitate. Part of me doesn't want to dig any deeper. What more could I learn about Jennifer that I didn't already know? But another part of me, the part that still felt blindsided by everything, needs answers. Step outside, dial the number, and wait. The voice on the other end is calm but direct. Robert? My name's Andrew. I knew Jennifer before you. That stops me cold. Before me? I ask. What do you mean? Andrew sighs. Let's just say you're not the first man. She's done this to same pattern, same story. She plays the victim, makes you feel like everything's your fault. And when she's bored, she finds someone else. I went through it all 5 years ago. My grip tightens on the phone. You're telling me she's done this before? To you? Not just me, Andrew says. There were others. Look, I don't want to dredge up your past, but I thought you deserved to know the truth. I've got emails, texts, proof. If her lawyer's coming after you, you're going to need it. Don't know what to say. My head is spinning. Jennifer had always been good at manipulating people. But this was on another level. Why are you telling me this? I ask finally. Because I know what it feels like to be blindsided, Andrew replies. And because someone did the same for me. When I was in your shoes, you don't have to fight this alone. The next morning, forward Andrew's emails to Melanie. When she calls me back, her tone is sharper than usual. This changes everything, she says. If we can prove she has a history of this kind of behavior, it undermines her entire case. We can turn this around, Robert. For the first time in weeks, feel a spark of hope. Jennifer had built her case on lies and manipulation, but now the cracks in her story are starting to show. The next time I see Jennifer is at a scheduled mediation meeting with both of our lawyers present. She's as poised as ever, her makeup perfect, her smile sharp enough to cut glass. But when Melanie lays out the evidence, emails from Andrew, text exchanges with other men, even a timeline of her previous relationships, her confidence falters. This is ridiculous, Jennifer snaps, her voice rising. You're dragging my personal life into this. How is that relevant? It's relevant because it establishes a pattern, Melanie says calmly. A pattern of dishonesty and infidelity. If you want to argue for spousal support, the court will need to evaluate your credibility. And right now it's not looking good. Jennifer's lawyer shifts uncomfortably in his seat, clearly blindsided by the evidence. Jennifer, on the other hand, glares at me with pure venom. You really went digging, didn't you? She hisses. You couldn't just let this go? You made this messy, I say, my voice steady. I'm just cleaning it up. For the first time, see something crack in her facade? Anger gives way to something else. Fear. She isn't in control anymore, and she knows it. After the meeting, Melanie pulls me aside. She's going to try to settle, she says. Her case is weak and she knows it. If she's smart, she'll take the deal we're about to offer. Good, I say. I'm done playing games. As I walk out of the building, a strange sense of peace washes over me. For the first time in months, feel like I'm getting my life back. Jennifer can lie, manipulate, and twist the truth all she wants. But she can't take away my resolve. I'm not just surviving this anymore. I'm winning. The mediation meeting had marked a clear shift. For the first time since this nightmare began, Jennifer's grip on the situation is slipping. Gone is the confident, smug woman who had been so sure she could control the narrative. Now she's on the defensive. Scrambling to salvage what's left of her case, Melanie wastes no time. Within days, she sends over a revised settlement proposal, one that would give Jennifer a small one-time payment, but no long-term spousal support. It's a fair offer, all things considered. But I know Jennifer will hate it. She doesn't want fair. She wants control. Sure enough, her response comes through. In less than 24 hours, she rejects the deal outright, her lawyer insisting that she deserves more. After all she had endured in our marriage, she's still playing the victim card, Melanie says. During our next call, sounding almost amused, but honestly, Robert, this is working in our favor. Her refusal to settle is making her look unreasonable. If we go to court, the judge is going to see right through her. Do you think it'll come to that? I ask, my voice tinged with exhaustion. The thought of dragging this out even further makes my stomach turn. It might, Melanie admits. But don't worry, we're in a strong position. Just stay patient. Patience isn't my strong suit, but I don't have much of a choice, so I wait. And in the meantime, I start to rebuild. Peter had been a rock through all of this, but even he knows. I need to get out of his guest room eventually. With his help, find a small apartment on the other side of town. It isn't much, just a one-bedroom, with a creaky floor and outdated appliances. But it's mine, a place to start over. Moving in feels like both a relief and a challenge. For the first time in years, I'm alone. No Jennifer, no shared responsibilities, no one to answer to but myself. It's strange, unsettling, but also freeing. I can finally breathe again. One night, as I unpack a box of old photos, come across our wedding album. Haven't thought about it in months. Haven't wanted to, but now, sitting on the floor of my new apartment, I flip through the pages. There we are, smiling and happy, surrounded by friends and family. In those photos, Jennifer looked like the woman I thought I'd married. Kind, loving, full of life. But as I look closer, I see it. The cracks that had always been there. The little signs I'd ignored. The way her smile didn't quite reach her eyes. The way she looked more at the camera than at me. Close the album. Set it aside. That chapter of my life is over. It's time to stop dwelling on the past and focus on the future. 2 weeks later, Jennifer's lawyer reaches out again. This time they're ready to negotiate. She's panicking, Melanie says. During our next meeting, I think she realizes she doesn't have a leg to stand on. If she drags this into court, it's only going to hurt her more. I nod, relief washing over me. So what happens now? We finalize the terms of the settlement, Melanie says. It's up to you whether you want to make any concessions. But honestly, you don't need to. We've got her cornered. Part of me wants to stick to the original offer, to give her as little as possible, after everything she'd put me through. But another part of me, the part that just wants this to be over, decides to take the high road, agree to a slightly larger payout, enough to ensure she couldn't accuse me of being unfair, but still far less than what she demanded. When the final papers are drafted, feel a weight lift off my shoulders. This is it. The end of the battle. All that's left is for Jennifer to sign. A week later, I get the call. It's done, Melanie says simply. She signed this morning. Sit there for a moment. The words sinking in. It's over. After months of fighting, of sleepless nights, and endless anxiety, it's finally over. What happens now, I ask. Now, Melanie says, her tone lighter than it had been in weeks. Now you move on. You've got your freedom, Robert. Use it. That evening, stand on the balcony of my new apartment, looking out at the city lights. The air is crisp, carrying the faint scent of rain. For the first time in what feels like forever, I feel peaceful. Jennifer is no longer a part of my life. The betrayal, the anger, the heartbreak, it's all behind me now. And while the scars will take time to heal, I know I'm on the right path. Think about everything I've been through, everything I've learned. If there's one thing I know for sure, it's this. I'll never let anyone make me feel small again. I'll never ignore the red flags, never settle for less than I deserve. And if I ever find love again, it will be with someone who values me. Someone who sees me as an equal, not a stepping stone. For now, though, I'm content to be alone, to focus on myself, to rebuild my life from the ground up. Because for the first time in years, I'm not living for someone else, I'm living for me. The morning after the settlement was finalized, wake up to a strange feeling. Quiet, not the kind of silence that comes from emptiness, but the kind that feels like peace. For the first time in months, there are no emails to dread, no lawyers to consult, no twisted games to endure. It's over. I'm free. The weight that had been pressing on my chest since the day I walked in on Jennifer and Anthony is gone. The memories are still there, of course, but they don't burn the way they used to. They're just memories now, a part of my story, but not the whole thing. A few weeks later, Peter convinces me to come out for drinks. I'd been hesitant at first. Socializing didn't exactly feel like a priority, but he wouldn't take no for an answer. You can't sit in that apartment forever, he says, dragging me out of the door. You're officially a free man. Time to act like it. We end up at a quiet bar downtown, the kind of place where the music isn't too loud and the conversations don't feel forced. Peter orders us a couple of beers, starts chatting about anything and everything. Work, sports, his new car. It's nice not having to talk about Jennifer, for a change. But then, as if the universe couldn't resist one last twist, I see her. Jennifer. She's sitting at the bar, with a group of friends, laughing and sipping a glass of wine. For a moment, I freeze, my stomach lurching. She looks happy, carefree, like she doesn't have a worry in the world. Like she hadn't just spent the last few months trying to destroy me. Peter follows my gaze, his expression darkening. When he sees her, "You want to leave?" he asks quietly. "No," I say after a moment, surprising even myself. "I'm fine." And seeing her didn't hurt the way I thought it would. It didn't make my chest tighten or my hands shake. If anything, it felt anticlimactic, like watching the credits roll on a movie you'd already seen too many times. She doesn't notice me, and I don't make an effort to approach her. What was the point? We'd said everything that needed to be said. She was the past now, and I wasn't interested in reopening old wounds. Instead, turn back to Peter. Raise my beer. To new beginnings, I say. He grins, clinks his bottle against mine. Damn right. As the weeks turn into months, start to build a life that feels like my own again. Pick up old hobbies I'd abandoned during the marriage. Hiking, photography, even learning to cook. It feels good to focus on myself, to rediscover the things that make me happy. Also start therapy, something I'd avoided for years. Talking to someone about everything, about Jennifer, about the betrayal, about my own mistakes, isn't easy, but it helps. It helps me understand why I'd stayed in a relationship that had been toxic long before it fell apart. It helps me see the warning signs I'd ignored and the patterns I don't want to repeat. Most importantly, it helps me let go, not just of Jennifer, but of the anger, the bitterness, the need for closure. I know I'll never get from her. I don't need her to apologize. I don't need her to admit she was wrong. I have my peace, and that's enough. One afternoon, as I'm cleaning out some old boxes, come across the wedding album again. This time I don't hesitate. Flip through the pages quickly, not lingering on any of the photos. Then close the album and toss it into the trash. It feels good, like shedding a layer of skin. I don't need any more. Months later, I meet someone. Her name is Lily, and she isn't anything like Jennifer. She's down to earth, funny and kind. We meet at a bookstore of all places and hit it off almost immediately. I don't rush into anything. We take our time getting to know each other, slowly, but from the start, it feels different, healthier, real. One evening, as we sit on her porch, watching the sunset, Lily asks me about my past. I tell her the truth. Not all the gritty details, but enough for her to understand what I'd been through. And now, she asks, her eyes searching mine. How do you feel about it all? Think about it for a moment, then smile. I feel free, I say. She smiles back, reaches for my hand. Good? You deserve that. Looking back, I realized that Jennifer had taught me something, even if it wasn't the lesson she'd intended. She'd taught me to value myself, to recognize my own worth, and to never settle for less than I deserved. It had been a painful lesson, one I wouldn't wish on anyone, but it had made me stronger. And for that, I was grateful. My life isn't perfect now, but it's mine. Every choice, every mistake, every triumph belongs to me, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Sometimes the worst betrayals lead us exactly where we need to be, even if we can't see it at the time.